Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and another assorted gender assignations. Welcome back to a special edition of the Bored To Death Bingecast. We are doing a RAMBLECAST where we're going to just ramble on a topic for half hour, 45 minutes, however long. I am Jay Winger, being joined by
Chris.
And our topic today is the one that we discussed in our Bingecast for the Netflix Castlevania series, and that's Assassin's Creed. If you haven't listened to that Bingecast episode yet, go ahead and do so.
We'll wait.
Yeah, you can go ahead and pause it. Go listen to it. Give us some more downloads and listens, please. We love it on our YouTube channel, now also on CKCC Radio. Going very well there. But at any rate, the Assassin's Creed series, you and I are both big fans of it. I know you've been playing those games again recently.
And I don't know how long have you been playing them for?
I've been playing them since the first Assassin's Creed with the Altair.
Same here.
And I'll admit, that one was probably the weakest of all of them.
Well,
the awkward control system didn't yet have a chance to sort of find its legs, and it was way too repetitive.
Well, a lot of the earlier ones were, especially when it was like side shit, and then there was like all the main stuff to do. I think that amongst between Altair and Ezio, I think Ezio had probably the better side quests.
Well, because by that point they were actually putting some more thought into those, besides just let's just throw a bunch of these same side quests, side mission stuff into every single city that you visit. They actually made it more coherent and gave it an actual more proper reason for why you would be doing it.
But I like in the I can't remember if this was the in-game explanation or not, or if this was just something the fans said, was that the reason why you couldn't swim in the original Assassin's Creed game is because there was a glitch with the Animus. I
have heard that theory. I don't know whether Ubisoft ever confirmed that was the case, but we'll go with that.
We'll go with that one.
It makes way more sense. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Assassin's Creed series, in short, you're basically fighting a secret war that's been going on since before recorded history.
Yeah.
Between two different factions that are essentially referred to as the Assassins and the Templars. And there's a whole lot more going on besides that, with like the secret history of the world that goes beyond just the Assassins and the Templars fighting since eternity, with the first civilization and everything that's going on there.
Yeah, do we want to discuss the secret video that you unlock in Assassin's Creed 2?
Yeah, it was Assassin's Creed 2. When in Assassin's Creed 2, you could find these hidden glyphs on landmarks, and if you interact with them in a specific way and then finished and figured out the puzzle that went with it,
you literally crawl into them. If you pay enough attention to Ezio when you go to interact with them, like the ones that, let's say it's the ones that you have to climb up to get to, and you have the Eagle Vision activated. When you climb up to them, you actually climb inside of the glyphs.
Yeah, and then there's puzzles and stuff, and you learn a whole lot more secret history stuff about what's going on with the Assassins and Templars. But when you've completed all of these hidden glyph puzzles in Assassin's Creed 2, you unlock this video, which essentially is supposed to show Adam and Eve stealing a piece of Eden, piece of this first civilization technology. And it's one of those things that you're just like, wait, what?
Well, that's how they reacted in the game.
Yeah, in the game, and players as well. There were other wait, what? moments in Assassin's Creed 2, like when Ezio meets Minerva.
Yeah,
and Minerva addresses Desmond, the character that's experiencing all this from the modern day,
and it's
and Ezio, and not Ezio. Desmond has the same response as the players, just what the fuck?
No, I like how even Ezio was just like, Desmond. Who is Desmond?
Yeah, basically. There's a whole lot of that stuff that goes on, and the games have explored a bunch of different time periods, from ancient Greece, ancient Egypt. Well, less ancient. That's more in the time of Julius Caesar, Egypt.
Yeah, because that was when
The Ptolemaic dynasty, Ptolemy and all that. But Assassin's Creed Odyssey, most certainly ancient Greece during the Peloponnesian War. But that's always one of the things about the Assassin's Creed series. It's always during a time of conflict or war going on. You had the Crusades, you had the Renaissance with all the wars going on between the various Italian city-states. You had the American Revolution, the French and Indian War, the Golden Age of piracy, the French Revolution, the Industrial Revolution. It's just they've plundered a whole lot of
There was also my personal favorite. I guess I could call it a hidden mission in Syndicate, where you come across the portal and you go to World War One.
Yeah, World War One, and you meet one of Evie's descendants. I believe.
It's
or that you're supposed to be playing as her. I think in the midst of all that.
No, because by then she would have been too old. Because if you
no, I didn't say as Evie, as one of her descendants.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know if it's hers or if it's her brother's.
Either way, a descendant of the twins. And they meet Winston Churchill.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
And there's all the other stuff that's going on. They've had like a meta plot going on through it all with Juno. And I haven't seen too much development of that in the recent games, and I'm wondering whether they actually supposedly wrapped that stuff up in one of the comic books that went along with it. Because Assassin's Creed, by the way, now also has a bunch of like comic books that follow other assassins in other time periods.
Comic books and 3 movies now.
3, whether they're animation or live action, because there is the live action one with Fassbender. There were 2?
Yeah.
What was the
prequel to Assassin's Creed 2, where it was about his dad.
I don't know that I ever saw that one.
Legacy.
I'll have to look that up later. And the thing is with the Assassin's Creeds, all these Assassin's Creed properties, the movies, animations, video games, comic books, novelizations, all of it is canon. It is all considered fair game, because Otto Berg, the Templar agent that hunts down a lot of that hunts down the assassins in the present day.
Yeah,
he first showed up in one of the comic books.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Some of the other characters that have been that are mentioned in passing pop up in some of these other things. So that's how I know that it's all considered canon. Otto Berg has a whole like comic series of his own in the Assassin's Creed stuff.
I'm not gonna lie, I actually haven't read any of them because
neither have I. But I've just looked some of this stuff up. I was like, who the hell is Otto Berg? Well, that's just his last name. I don't remember what his first name is, but it's just they always call him Otto Berg instead of just Berg. But you and I have talked about like some of the things that we would like to see Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, we talked about what did you say it was 19th century Japan?
Yeah, 19th century Japan, Meiji era. During the Meiji Restoration. For you anime fans, think the time period of Rurouni Kenshin.
For you non-anime fans, Last Samurai with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, it's a time period where Japan has been more or less forcibly opened up to the outside world because they've been very isolationist.
Yeah. Up
to that point, they're starting to modernize. It's affecting their society in many ways, moving away from tradition. Firearms are being introduced into Japan as well, and the samurai class is seeing them losing a lot of their prestige and place in society, because when you can just equip the peasants with rifles, what do you need a guy on horseback with a sword for? And
just send in one wave after another, wait for them to run out of ammo.
Yep. I wrote a blog post, and I'll include a link in the description to it, that I wrote a while ago, called Gamer Dribble about Assassin's Creed, and I talked about this and some of the about that time period and why that's a good time period for the conflict going on there, the tradition versus modernization thing, and all that stuff. Plus, when when you get down to it, you would essentially be playing a ninja, and who doesn't love playing as a fucking ninja?
I can't think of anybody who wouldn't want to play as one.
Exactly. It's a huge genre as it is with when it comes to ninjas. But you could easily just be somebody an assassin that could also put on samurai armor and swing around a samurai sword as well. You know.
Honestly, I don't have a problem with that because I remember in Assassin's Creed Rogue, one of the hidden armor sets that you can get in the game was Viking armor.
And of course, we know that there's the upcoming Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I am very much looking forward to because, goddamn, Vikings are awesome.
Yeah, back to the Japan one. Like, what would you want to see in terms of like weaponry for that? Like besides
samurai sword and bows and arrows, you have ninja stars would be a great stealth kill.
Yeah.
Distance weapon.
Would you still want to have the hidden blade?
Well, it's not an Assassin's Creed game if you don't have the hidden blade.
Well,
yes, I know Odyssey. You know they didn't the hidden blade had not yet become a thing yet. Granted, you do in Legends of the First Blade, or where you meet Darius, who basically invented it. So it gets a pass there from me, but I could easily see, well, because it's post Hidden Blade becoming the signature assassin's weapon. Yes, a Japanese assassin would need to have the Hidden Blade. Definitely. They just have to. It's, if you're going to be ninja-ing around all over the place and stealth killing guards, you're going to have a Hidden Blade if you're an assassin.
I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff that would be kind of cool in there. Like, I know there was the the Japanese longsword where it looks like a katana, but
a nodachi.
Thank you. And it's much longer.
Think like Sephiroth's sword if you've played Final Fantasy VII or Kingdom Hearts. That big ass katana that he's got. Not technically a katana; it's called a nodachi, but yes. Or the wakizashi, short sword thing.
Yeah, and that could be for like
naganatas and other pole arms, maybe.
That could be for when you want to like attack someone who's not close enough to you, and then for when up close and personal, short sword.
Yeah. Short sword, or your kunai daggers, whatever, stuff like that.
One thing I would probably like to see brought back. I think this was used in one of the games. I don't remember. A blowgun.
Yeah, it was in Black Flag. I'm pretty sure he had a blowgun and a blowpipe in Black Flag. Rogue, they didn't have it because he had that little air rifle thing.
That was a cool gun.
That was a cool gun, but he had that because he was working with the Templars. So
I think he took it before that.
He might have, but he got all of his really cool kit from once he signed up with the Templars.
Yeah,
and I don't know what sort of set piece action scenes you would have in Meiji era Japan. There were some conflicts that sprung up during that time period. Unfortunately not too well versed on a whole lot of them.
Kill the white people.
Not necessarily that, but it's like the Shinsengumi and stuff like that.
Basically, the people who are like, here are new weapons for you, and then there are the people who are saying, we'll buy these weapons off of you.
Yeah, basically. But I'm talking set pieces like some of the battle sequences, or it's like you have to run through like a crumbling, like when Matarajone gets attacked in Brotherhood.
Yeah,
that set pieces like that where you're running through like a big action sequence, or the earthquake.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up
from Rogue. Because I'm just thinking of that. It's like, and there weren't necessarily a whole lot of that sort of thing in some of the Origins or Odyssey, but they still had some pretty cool things. Like Origins had the dream sequence where you fight the giant snake.
That was weird because
it made sense to me because I've read up on Egyptian mythology. That was Apep, who is this giant serpent that every night when Ra travels through the underworld, when he leaves the sky because he's the sun and travels through the underworld, Apep is usually trying to attack him, and several of the other gods have to defend him during that time period. So as soon as I saw that giant snake, I was like, I know what's going on here. This is awesome. And naturally, there was also Odyssey and Origins also gave us the DLCs where you basically meet some of the ancient gods.
Yeah. Did you do the Atlantis part yet?
I have not finished all of Atlantis, but I am in chapter 2 right now, so in the realm of Hades.
Okay.
And I know the third part goes to Atlantis, and Poseidon is in that one.
Yeah, he is.
And I'm sure when Valhalla comes out, we're going to meet the Norse gods, Odin and Loki,
If
Thor. And if they don't, that's a huge opportunity missed.
I mean, if it's not in the main game, then the DLC.
The DLC, yeah. I don't know specifically how you would handle that sort of thing in a Japanese era game. You know, there's plenty of Japanese like Shinto gods and stuff like that, Amaterasu and characters like that, but. How you would necessarily tie that into the game, I'm not sure. That said, there are the 3. I pulled it up here on my notes from my blog post. The 3 sacred treasures of Japan, which are in the care of the imperial family. The sword Kusanagi, the mirror Yata no Kagami, and the jewel Yasakani no Magatama. I don't know specifically what all of those are. This Kusanagi, I believe, is the grass cutting sword. There's legends and stories about that.
There's a story for that in the Usagi Yojimbo comics where they go looking for a sword called Grass Cutter.
There you go.
So
there's plenty. Those 3 things could easily be first civilization artifacts.
I mean, if they
the mirror, could be something similar to the observatory from Black Flag.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And the jewel could just be another like piece of Eden, like the apple or something.
Well,
and the sword could be a much cooler version of the sword like that you unlock in Unity. The sword it's just like the sword. You're like, why did you wait until the end of the game to give me this cool sword when I don't need it anymore?
I hate it when games do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of Japanese mythology and stuff that they could include into it.
We're obviously not too well versed on it ourselves, so we can't necessarily speak on a lot of it. But there's plenty there. We don't need to just harp on all of Western civilization. There is so much that's untouched in China and Japan and other parts of the world.
I know that there's the whole Japanese demons and stuff like that. In fact, if I remember correctly, I think it was in one of the animated Hellboy films. I think there's one part. Sword of Storms. That's what it is. Okay. That one takes place in Japan, and one of the I wouldn't call it a creature because there's several of them. They're all basically these heads. And if I remember correctly, I think they either floated around or they bounced around on the ground, but that's based off of a specific Japanese mythology. Yep. I think it was something similar to that in it. So, yeah, Japan definitely has a lot of its own, mythos and stuff included with it, like any other culture does. Yeah. So they could just throw those, any of that stuff in. I know Ubisoft, they do their research first.
Yeah, the teams that work on the Assassin's Creed games, they do a lot of the research. Sure, they may make some adjustments here and there for the purposes of gameplay or streamlining stuff, so they're not having to info dump a whole bunch of stuff on you, or at least if they have to info dump, they hide it in just stuff that's in the menus that you don't even have to pay attention to if you don't want to.
Yeah.
I did like those things, especially because especially in Assassin's Creed 3, because all this commentary on the American Revolution is being made by a British guy who's just very, very annoyed by all of it.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to do this.
Well, it's not so much that he doesn't want to do this, so much as that he's like, he's giving his own perspective on the American Revolution from the other side, as it were. But at any rate, yeah, Assassin's Creed in Japan, please Ubisoft, make it. You could do another series of Chronicles games if you must, but I would love to have it be a proper Assassin's Creed game where you're wandering around Tokyo. Maybe you travel to Kyoto at one point, as well, roaming through the Japanese countryside. Please give us this stuff. It would be awesome.
And now we're on to our next idea that you and I talked about.
We've talked about it. Again, this is something that I touched on in my blog post. But we discussed it more at length at a later date, and the time period is Cold War Berlin.
So the idea that we had was basically kind of like what Assassin's Creed 3 was, where it starts off with the main character's dad. Like in this case, we said that he should be probably either a British soldier or an American soldier fighting during World War II. And he essentially...
Maybe he's part of the Special Operations Executive, the SOE, Ministry for Ungentlemanly Warfare stuff. Yeah, if he's British, he would be be SOE. If he were American, I don't know. Maybe he'd be some. I forget what the American version of the SOE was, because there was one where they dropped them in to do the spy stuff and sabotage behind enemy lines stuff. But at any rate, let's say that they're SOE from Britain. Makes more sense. Plus, you get to tap into the SOE stuff, and that's just. Oh my God! I need to read more about them.
Well, no. Do you remember who I said that who the character needs to meet while he's
Ian Fleming?
Yeah, Ian Fleming. I was like, well, you know what? We already meet all these other like historical figures and whatever from all the other games. Throw Ian Fleming in.
Yeah.
And like maybe as you're talking to him, like there's like you can hear like a faint musical cue of the James Bond theme playing.
Or something like it. Maybe not the straight
stereotypical spy music.
Yeah. Not a full on da da because then
someone's gonna get sued.
Yeah, somebody will get sued. You do that, but touch on the spy world, because if you're setting in during the Cold War in Berlin, it's all going to be about the spy game.
So the idea was that. Story-wise, this character was going to, if it's an English or a British soldier, he could probably be like, after the war, he either moves to or stays in Germany. Like it could be like he met a German woman. They had a son together.
The spy stays in Germany or comes back to Germany.
Yeah,
has a kid.
And kind of like the Speed thing where it shows the son
a time lapse,
where it shows the son essentially growing up, but as he's growing up with his dad,
they're walking along a street in Berlin,
and and in the background the Berlin Wall is being constructed,
and you're seeing the other buildings going through whatever architectural changes might be going on during this time period, the reconstruction after the war. The wall being erected and all of that.
When he finally gets older, like let's say 18 years old.
I'd go with early 20s. Is probably
late teens, early 20s.
He hits his late teens. That's where he starts getting into the spy world. But then we have like another little time skip. So then he's in his. Then he's in his early to mid 20s.
Well, first he has to go through the whole like, no, I don't want to get involved with this kind of thing. Like, yeah, it's my country, but I don't want to get involved with it. It's not my place. This is a political thing. But then he starts seeing things. He starts seeing
things or experiencing some of the inequality or whatever. Gets involved somehow. He gets involved.
He gets involved somehow. Like you could be seeing people, people being abused in some fashion by Russian soldiers, or people are starving to death.
The Spetsnaz or something, or not Spetsnaz. If he ends up on the East German side, he sees the Stasi, doing their things. And the Stasi were real nasty. Because I think somebody made some comment about how like the KGB just broke your body, but the Stasi would break your soul, kind of thing. So there you go. You have your perfect example of the nasty side of things.
And it could be something like he either gets tired of it. Maybe something happens with his dad. Like his dad probably ends up running into, again, depending on which side of the wall he's on. Like he could be coming home late. Let's say there's a curfew. He misses the curfew. He ends up getting jumped by some of the Russians,
or the Russians, yeah.
Because he's, granted, yeah, he could be one of those tough old guys that just like, come on, bring it. Body can only take but so much abuse before it gives in. So
he might be a tough old veteran of the war, but when you're outnumbered,
it's a different story.
You're getting on in the years, and maybe you have some injury from the war or whatever. You're at a disadvantage. You are going to go down eventually.
So something happens with the dad. Like he doesn't necessarily have to die. He could be in the hospital. He could just be bedridden. It could be any one of those things. It doesn't have to be like somebody dying. So the son basically, says, I need to do something.
That's when he gets involved.
Yeah, and that's when he decides to get involved. He doesn't know about the Creed. He doesn't know about the assassins yet.
But he sees an injustice and he is trying to correct it.
Yeah. So he basically tries to do something like go after certain Russian soldiers or whatever. Or
some Stasi officer.
He tries to do that. And one of the as he's trying to do this, he bumps into a member of the Creed. The assassin ends up helping him out because he kind of sees, it's like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm trying to get back at them because of what they did with my dad. And he's like, okay, well, come with me.
Come with me. There are better ways to fight this fight,
yeah,
or whatever.
Yeah, he essentially takes him under his wing. Teaches him, their ways, the better ways to, like, assassinate someone, especially in that time. Because I think we said, like, kind of like what they were doing with Assassin's Creed 2, where it was just like, like the 70s, and then ended in the 80s. And he basically, like, the game should end with him watching from a distance, watching the Berlin Wall come down.
Come down, yeah. He wouldn't be like a very old man by that point, but he would be older. He'd be older, like in his 40s or 50s by that point. 40s probably.
Yeah.
And just with a smile of satisfaction on his face, like the walls finally come down or whatever.
And have it to where you have it show him still wearing like whatever his assassin uniform would be, but have it show it to where, like, over like that period of time as he's watching the Berlin Wall being taken down, like it starts getting kind of like raggedy, might be a little ripped here and there, some holes in it, and then turns around, gray hairs, gray beard, but he's got this big smile on his face because he's new. Job well done.
Yeah, it'd probably be more like salt and peppery, but yeah, he's got like his assassin's hood up or whatever. But you can see like it's got patches in places, it's getting threadbare. And he turns around and he's got the salt and pepper look.
Because I was thinking that for the look, I was thinking like maybe like a hoodie.
Yeah, because of the time period, it's not going to be like real fancy stuff like Ezio was wearing, or people like. Bayek or Cassandra / Alexios in Odyssey, with all the various different looks to it. It's going to be more
or Kenways
or the Kenways, yeah.
But I was thinking like something similar to can't think of the guy's name from Rogue.
Shay,
thank you.
Shay Cormac.
Because his looked like it was two separate things. Like there was like the shirt underneath and had the hood. And then there was like an overcoat.
Yeah.
Over. I was thinking something similar to that, but if
Shay's some sort of great coat or something that he wears like over his regular attire. Maybe that's something that he can change out if he needs to sneak behind the enemy, sneak into a Stasi.
I was thinking.
Then he puts on like a uniform coat or something.
Yeah, like he gets taught, like the art of the master of disguise.
Yeah. You would have to emphasize that because if the emphasis in a Cold War Assassin's Creed game would be on the spy game and stuff, the spy gadgetry and stuff that's going on.
So one of the things that we were talking about was what weapons should be in this game. And since we're talking about stealth, you can't really have guns. If there's a gun, then I can understand silencer. Because if we're talking spy stuff, when it comes to the guns, there's got to be silencer. Or
you could easily come up with some sort of hand wave some excuse that guns are strictly controlled in Cold War Berlin. Neither the authorities on both sides crack down heavily on it. They police it heavily, so it's very, very difficult to get your hands on.
But have it to where there's maybe like places where where weapons are hidden throughout the city. Like little stashes.
And there's zip guns. Like the one shots.
Yeah.
So it's like you only get the one shot, and then you discard it.
I want to
so you're not just bang 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 or thwip since the silencers, but like a zip gun, so you can just come up behind a guy and just shoot him with the little derringer.
Man with the golden gun.
Kind of, and then you just discard the zip gun because it's only designed for one use. And like blow darts would probably also be a thing. All sorts of spy stuff. Here's the thing for you in real life. If you ever get a chance, I think it's open to the public. Although you probably have to go through some hoops to get access to it. But I have had a chance to see the museum that the CIA has for its spy gadgetry in their headquarters.
That's got to be cool.
Oh yeah, I spent a good half hour just walking through there. Well, actually closer to an hour, just looking at some of the stuff. They even had a display of a guy wearing like a James Bond style tux, a mannequin of wearing the tux, and a female mannequin wearing like a typical sort of female spy slinky dress with the mink stole and everything. And the mannequin was even holding like a martini glass.
Of course.
But there were like little labels pointing out all the spy gadgets that were in the stuff, like the olive in the martini had like a radio transmitter built into it.
Huh.
And all sorts of stuff. I'm just looking at it.
And all this was legit?
Yes. I mean, this is stuff they're probably not using anymore. They've got way better technology now. But it's just sort of like, this is what they were able to do back then.
He's got a wire.
I'm just like, because we talked about that briefly when we were starting to geek out over the prospect of a Cold War assassin story, of just have him being like keen on all the spy stuff. Like he reads the spy novels. Goes and sees the spy movies and stuff.
like I want it to be like have there be like a movie theater somewhere. Like people should still we're still allowed to go see movies at that point.
At least in West Berlin they were. East Berlin probably not.
I want one of the marquee, just so that way you can tell what year it is. I want one of the Bond film titles up there.
It's one of those things you'd have to really have to be careful about when the game is set specifically, because I don't remember.
The fans will go nuts.
Fans will go nuts. It's like you get it wrong, they are going to let you know about it.
Great. I know that they could, if they get it wrong and after the game is released, they could easily just go and patch it and then fix it.
Yeah, but at the same time, get it right because you guys do the research. Just get it right.
Have it to where. Because I know that there are collectibles, like just random.
There's always collectibles.
There's just random crap that you collect in the games,
like maybe like movie posters for this.
Posters, novels. Have it to where he runs into Ian Fleming at one point in time, and he's like, "Oh, what are you working on?" He's like, "Oh, I'm working on a new Bond or a new novel, a new spy book." You know, and again, depending on what year it takes place in, is probably the one where you can just be like, "Okay, what Bond book was he working on that point in time?" Be like, "Oh, yeah, that one."
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, like have like spy stuff that he collects, like stuff that is literally just collectibles, and he's got like all the knickknacks in his house or whatever.
And with because it's an Assassin's Creed game, and we're talking about setting it more in one city as opposed to across an entire country, like with Origins or Odyssey, or even our Meiji era Japan one, where I don't know how much like old architecture survived in Berlin because of the war. It's not like in France where they still had a lot of old
Notre
stuff.
Dame being the one thing.
Notre Dame, or in London, where there was still old architecture there to serve as landmarks.
Yeah,
and especially in the Ezio trilogy,
Big Ben,
all over, with all the stuff that's all over Italy, all the various landmarks
that's still there.
That's still there. Like I said, I don't know how much classic architecture necessarily survived in Berlin because of the war.
So
because it got bombed pretty heavily towards the end.
Well, like
Sure.
Historically, I know that the area where Hitler's bunker was,
The Wolf's Den.
Yeah. So where it is, or the location, what it is right now is a parking lot, but the bunker is still underneath that. So the bunker still exists. You just can't access it unless you dig for it.
And if you were, then people would be like, "What? Why are you digging up this parking lot? What are you doing?"
So yeah, stuff like that is
only with a German accent. But anyway.
I'm half German. I'm not offended.
Yeah, I know.
But stuff like that, you could show little like stuff like that. It's like, oh, this is where Hitler's bunker used to be. What is it now? We're turning it into a parking lot. Stuff like that.
I think in the games, Hitler might have had one of the pieces of Eden.
I think so. I remember in Assassin's Creed 2 when you were going through the things to unlock those little videos. One of the things that it showed was that Nikola Tesla had one.
Yeah, and supposedly he caused the Tunguska event with it.
I think that's what they hinted at. I don't really remember. But yeah, we agreed on, instead of doing another piece of Eden, instead we would go back to the Sage.
Right, that's right. The Sage is a character that got introduced in Black Flag and kept popping up through that trilogy of games. Black Flag and Unity and Rogue. I don't know about Rogue necessarily. No, but he was in Unity, and a Sage popped up in the World War I missions in Syndicate.
Yeah.
And then we hadn't really heard too much about what the Sage has been up to since then.
Because what did they say that the Sage, when he dies, he just gets...
Well, it's not so much that he reincarnates. He is constantly resurfacing in people because his DNA sort of comes out in people. But there have been cases where there have been multiple Sages at a time. They don't have knowledge of each other. It's not like a hive mind thing, but it's like the intellect of the Sage comes through in that person. So it could going back to a Sage would be an interesting little twist.
And it could be one other thing that I had brought up when we were discussing this was have a younger version of the Doctor from the first Assassin's Creed game.
Vidic.
Yes.
Warren Vidic, have him involved somewhere.
Like have it to where he's not in the position of power that he was in the first two games, or the first three games.
Well, because he's still going to be either a boy or still quite young. He hasn't yet hit the point where he has.
Yeah, have it to where he could be maybe early to mid 20s, and he's more so an assistant, and he's helping the Sage look for a piece of Eden, either an apple of Eden, or they can make some other BS up.
I just looked it up. Yeah, Hitler did have one of the pieces of Eden, and unfortunately, I'm not delving too deep into it. I'm just literally looking it up right here. But he did have one. But doesn't say necessarily what happened to that piece of Eden after the war. We'll just gloss over that because, like you said, rather than focusing on a piece of Eden, go with the Sage as the one orchestrating things.
Mm-hmm. Now,
for whatever purpose he has.
Now we also discussed the weapons that we would like to see.
Hidden Blade is an obvious
Hidden
thing.
Blade, yeah.
Because it's an Assassin's game, you got to have a Hidden Blade.
We said well, here's the thing, though. In the Assassin's Creed movie, the one with Michael Fassbender, the beginning of the movie, it showed when it showed him as a kid, when his dad, who is a member of the Creed, had to kill his mom because the Templars were coming for them.
Yep. And for whatever reason, she couldn't escape with them, and so that's why he killed her. Anyway,
he got captured himself. Yeah. So if you look, and I actually started playing the movie just so I can get to this scene. If you look at the way the blade is designed, I'm actually showing him from the movie. It's serrated right here, like where it's like closest to the wrist.
Yeah,
it's serrated. So when they were designing, because this part takes place in the 80s. When they were designing his hidden blade, they were like, how would the hidden blade have looked in the 80s?
Yeah, back then.
And so they decided to add the serrated part to it.
Like, they literally took, like, a K-bar and, like, modified it to serve as, like, a hidden blade sort of thing. That's sort of the vibe I got from looking at it just there.
My dad has a K-bar. A K-bar doesn't have a serrated part.
Okay. Maybe I'm thinking of some other kind of military.
The Rambo knife.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. We'll go with that.
But this is like the ones that not the serrated ones where they're like really close and really small, but the ones that look like water waves,
like notched almost.
Yeah. So that's how they looked. You get a better view of it later on in the film.
But something like that, have that as something. Make the hidden blade for our German assassin look unique in some way. And I would definitely say it still would have to be an under the wrist hidden blade.
I just had an idea.
Rather than above the wrist like Darius or the Viking assassin in Valhalla.
I have an idea. So the thing that you and I were discussing about was to have it to where he kind of like researches the various weapons the assassins have used over the years. Because I said I want to see the rope dart get brought back.
Right.
So what I want to see get brought back is the weapon from Unity, and that's the crossbow.
Oh, the blade launcher.
Yes. To where so what I want to see is, well, first off, if you remember in Assassin's Creed 3, whenever you're doing like the hunting stuff and you're going over,
and his hidden blade actually pops out a little bit, still attached to his wrist, but so he can grip it
like a knife, and that. It's what he was using to skin, animals when he was hunting. Yeah. Do something similar to that, to where, like, if he needs to attack someone from like around a corner, like he's like this, and they just pow.
Yep. The old like when you're like leaning against the corner and just do the little whistle.
That's something else that they need to bring back. The whistling. I miss them doing that. I don't know why.
I think it's still in the games, but it's not quite the way it is. Was emphasized in like 2 and 3 and stuff like that. Where you lean up and it's like, and then they get close, you shank them and then pull them into like a little seated position.
I think my favorite version of that was in when they started showing like how far the sound waves go out, so that way you can see. It's like, all right, well, I need to kill that guy. I need to wait for him to get closer, but I can't let this guy hear me because I can only do one. Bring back the double hidden blades.
See, what I would, the double hidden blades, but the way I would do it, have on one wrist is his his attached blade, the one that he can pop it out and grip it in his hand thing. The other one has the launcher.
No, so this is my idea. Oh no, the other one has the hook blade. Hook blade needs to
come back. Yes. Oh my god, the hook blade.
The hook blade needs to come back.
I loved the hook blade. I'm so sorry it didn't get used again in like Black Flag and later games.
It would have been perfect in Black Flag.
Oh yeah. So for like sliding down on like vines or ropes and shit.
What I was thinking was, all right, so on his wrist where the blade is, have it to where there's like a knob for him to turn, and have the knob be a German cross that he can grab, turns it, and then the crossbow part pops out, and then he basically
so he like twists it,
and then it pops out,
and then he can fire it. Okay, yeah, that works. I don't remember off the top of my head what a German cross looks like. No, you don't have to describe it. I can look it up later. You guys can look it up later as well. But Yeah, but as you can tell, we have a lot of ideas for this Cold War Assassin's Creed game.
I'm trying to remember some of the other stuff that we had discussed in terms of like the
Well, I remember one thing that I want to see like a tribute to of sorts, and that's the stairwell fight scene from Atomic Blonde. You haven't seen that?
I have seen it. That was when she like pulled her shirt collar over her face.
No,
right?
I'm talking that huge, big, long fight scene.
Oh, well, they were trying to outdo Daredevil.
Yeah, basically, where it was all filmed like one take. I mean, some of the other fight scenes, like the one in the apartment where she's using like her scarf to and a fire hose or something to pull people around and clothesline them and stuff. But no, something like the stairwell fight scene where it's just a big, long, protracted fight between a German assassin and maybe a couple of Stasi officers.
So let me ask you something. Would you want it to be a quick time part of the game, or do you want it to be like one that you actually control?
One that you actually control would be best, but I wouldn't be averse to a quick time fight sequence either. Not necessarily was like you miss a quick time event, you're dead. I would say I would go more for you miss a quick time event, you'll lose a bunch of health, and then you have to fight some more before you get another one of those triggers.
No, it's like the closer you get to death, like you have an adrenaline meter that goes up, but it's like the more that gets filled up, the more adrenaline you have, and the faster you get.
And of course, yeah, an adrenaline thing would be tie the adrenaline thing into his eagle sense, or whatever his equivalent of it is, because of course he's going to have it, because every Assassin's Creed protagonist has had something like the eagle vision.
So we would bring back the classic eagle vision.
Find some way to make it different but still recognizable as what it is. Maybe something kind of like what Arno had in Unity.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have full eagle vision, because he wasn't part of the same bloodline
as Desmond.
He was part of Desmond's bloodline, but the first civilization DNA wasn't as pronounced in Arno as it was in like Ezio or the Kenways.
No, and I think I brought this up to you. You know who Arno is an ancestor of? Michael Fassbender's character from Assassin's Creed.
Do remember you saying that.
All right,
because you can see Arno in that one sequence where he sees all of the assassins.
Yeah,
in his bloodline.
where Fassbender in the film, when he basically goes
full synchronization.
Full synchronization, yeah. And he's sitting there in all of like the because he's still attached to their
Animus.
version of their Animus, which is that cool arm. Like, I'm sorry, but I thought it was cool.
It was. It's certainly way more dynamic and exciting than just him
laying down,
him laying in a chair, plugged into the Matrix.
And he starts to see all of like I'm gonna call them holograms. Yeah, that's what they were
essentially. Yeah.
Of all of the assassins that he was descended from. If you pay close enough attention. Arno does pop up, and the way you can identify which one is him is he's wearing his blue and white French outfit when he first becomes a full-fledged assassin. Mm-hmm. That's the outfit.
I do remember now. It's one of those things I'm going to have to go back and watch that movie again at some point. But yes, I do remember Arno popping up, because I remember reading about that Arno was there, and so I was watching carefully, waiting to see it.
Yeah, I had to rewatch the film to find out where he was in it and which one was him. And I was like, oh shit, that is him. So yes, Arno Dorian is in the Assassin's Creed movie with Michael Fassbender. But do you want the character in the Cold War era assassin? Do you want him to like study up on? Like to kind of like show him studying up on the history of the assassins, like Ezio, Altair,
maybe that's one of the collectibles is like books that were stolen from the Creed that are like and now are like scattered about Berlin, where they were taken by Templar agents or whatever, and he's just trying to track them down. Not necessarily because then he'll learn these new skills, but because he wants to read about these guys. And he needs to just find these books, maybe, and that then unlocks more information about them in your Animus database.
Yeah, excuse me. What about the real world stuff?
That's trickier because I'm so not very clear on where they're going with all of the present day framework stuff. They've been doing a lot with Layla Hassan in Odyssey and Origin, where she's the one who's tracking down all this stuff, and they're emphasizing that she was the one who basically helped develop the Animus, and that's one reason why she has this portable version that she's hauling around to all these archaeological sites and whatnot. Not sure how exactly you would tie it all together, unless maybe the Sage pops up, or a new Sage pops up in the modern day, and that's one reason why they're trying to backtrack what the Sage has been up to in more recent history, and that's why they're focusing on this particular
with this one person.
Yeah. Or heck, maybe the person that you're controlling in the modern day stuff isn't Layla, and maybe there's somebody that works for Abstergo.
It could be that too.
But while they're investigating this stuff, they come to realize the Sage is not on our side. maybe the whatever branch of Abstergo they're working for mistakenly thinks that they can work alongside the Sage, and then they suddenly realize, wait, no, they have their own agenda. We can't trust them.
Okay, so I'm trying to look up the like a better view of the Hidden Blade from the Assassin's Creed movie. The one assassin that's in that movie named Maria, who's the female assassin that works alongside
in the Spanish Inquisition time.
Yeah, apparently her hidden blade is 2 hidden blades.
I like that.
And
I like that they did try to sort of customize them a little bit, and I think that's something that they should strive for in future Assassin's Creed games. Make the hidden blades a bit more unique to each assassin. They sort of did that. Ezio, of course, had dual hidden blades, and then eventually got the hook blade. Connor had the one that also served as his hunting knife.
That I thought was actually kind of cool to see, because of him being Native American, it's like, what is he going to do with his hidden blade? The
thing that was really the most customized though was his tomahawk. That had the assassin's logo in it. Logo serving as the hatchet blade. But after that, they all felt pretty samey, except for Arno, because he had the launcher.
Yeah, I like how it seems like everybody has something specific
that makes them stand out a little bit more. So they're not just the same assassin or same style.
Yeah, like
across the centuries.
Like in Odyssey, because you don't get a hidden blade, instead what it is the tip of Leonidas' spear, which you find out later on is
it's first civilization.
Yeah, it's first civilization tech. That's the reason why, and you kind of figure this out as you're killing the members of the Cult of Cosmos. You're getting the little triangles, or whatever.
The little shards of tech.
Every time you collect a certain amount, you can go back to this first civilization temple on this island in the middle.
Where there's a forge, and you basically plug it in, and it upgrades it.
Yeah, and as you're upgrading it, the look of it actually changes completely.
Reminds me in a way of the weapons that Talion uses in Shadow of Mordor.
Remind me, because I haven't.
Because he has his sword, and he has the dagger, which was his son's sword that got broken, and a bow. But as you level them up, their appearance changes. Really? The broken sword blade becomes a more proper dagger.
So it actually gets an actual tip for it.
Yeah, and so it's not just a broken jagged shard, and it visibly changes. It makes sense in Shadow of Mordor because he's bound to this to the elf wraith, and that elf was like the ultimate blacksmith. Celebrimbor, was the one who forged the fucking One Ring for Sauron.
I didn't get that far in the game, but that's cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I know that Middle Earth fans, when the Wraith's identity was finally revealed in the game, they were like, holy shit, because Celebrimbor is like an actual figure in Middle Earth lore. It's not just some random dude that they made up for the game.
Well, I hope so. Otherwise, Stephen Colbert would have been flipping his shit.
I'm sure Stephen Colbert is probably flipping his shit anyway, because he's a huge Middle Earth geek.
This is another discussion for another.
Yeah,
podcast.
But we've talked a lot about the Cold War game that we would like to see. But what we also talked about on the Castlevania thing was do like a Netflix animated series for Assassin's Creed. And the way you could do it is each season could focus on a different assassin.
Well, like I said, while we were watching it, because I looked up the guy who was the executive producer, and I'm drawing a blank on his name now.
Don't worry about it.
But anyways, it's the same guy who was also the executive producer for the movie Dread. Look him up.
Yeah. Okay. I remember you mentioning that, and I was like, ooh, I got real excited.
So one of his upcoming projects, I don't know when it's supposed to be released because I haven't heard a release date or plot, nothing. But apparently he is working on an Assassin's Creed animated series for Netflix.
So excited.
And what I wanted was, now granted, in the third Ezio game, you do get little tidbits here and there of what happened after the events of the first Assassin's Creed game with Altair.
Yeah.
I want this to fill in the gaps.
Fill in the gaps for Altair?
Yes, because...
Well, that's true, because the various flashbacks that Ezio experienced with Altair filled in some of the gaps over time with him. It showed him establishing his relationship with the former Templar chick that he eventually married and had children with.
Yeah, I think you see her in Assassin's Creed 2. Because there was that little.
Yeah, it's brief. It was Desmond saw it because he had the bleeding effect dream.
Yeah.
And it's like he's experiencing things as Ezio, climbing up a tower and meeting with her, and they lay down and get funky, and then afterwards, Altair goes off, and Desmond's like, why am I not following him? And then it's like the focus goes back on her, and he's like, oh, because it's like the bloodline has
which,
continued.
if I remember correctly, during Altair's time with the Creed, they weren't supposed to do that, because the reason why. All right, so it's made to believe that the reason why they cut off a part of their ring finger was for the hidden blade, so that way it could go between your middle and pinky finger. Mm-hmm. What the reason why they were doing that was because it was to show devotion to the Creed, to the Brotherhood. So that's the reason why. And Altair broke all sorts of rules. Like
that's what got him in trouble in the first place.
Yeah. So whatever. And then when he took over
as mentor,
he started making changes. Like in Assassin's Creed 2, as you're unlocking the stuff for that map, which shows the whole world. If you go and you take the time to actually read the stuff in there, it's all stuff written by Altair. One of the things that he said that he wanted to do was one of the things that he was discussing was getting rid of having to cut off your finger.
Because it makes it way too easy to identify assassins. If you just have to look for a guy who's missing a finger on one of his hands, and a very specific finger at that, it pretty makes it pretty easy to spot them.
Well, plus I'm pretty sure he was just like, it really hurts. But
no, I think it was more because it allows them to operate more secretly.
Yeah.
Rather than just for the devotion thing.
Another thing,
it protects the Brotherhood more if they're not so easily identified.
Very true. Another thing that he wanted to change was to kind of like, in doing that, he also said, changing the design of the Hidden Blade. Another one was to add a second Hidden Blade. He's like, what if you have two targets that you need to take out? You just shrink and boom, done. Which you do in Assassin's Creed 2 when you get the blueprints for the second Hidden Blade.
All the blueprints that you take to Da Vinci, and he builds the stuff.
Da
for
Vinci
you.
was literally your version of Q in that.
Yeah, basically.
I think another one was to add the poison tip, like the hollow poison tip to the hidden blade, so that way you could literally, like if you didn't want to like completely reveal yourself, you literally just go on over, poke someone with it, and walk away.
I loved using that thing.
Oh, so did I, especially when you had it as the projectile launcher. Like, I want to take that guy out, but I want to see his 50 friends see me go, pew! And I sit back and watch the show.
Yeah, and then the hidden gun.
The hidden gun was fun, and I swear to God, I'm pretty sure all those Renaissance guards didn't know what the hell was it. It's like, what was that booming noise?
Well, the first time you use it really in the game was on one of your targets, but he was like watching fireworks, and you had to time your shot.
Oh God, I remember that because I'm sitting there like, wait for it, boom, 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 missed it, do it again, and I had to sit there and wait.
But there was also the moment in Revelations when in the Altair flashback when he comes back to comes back to their fortress. I forget the name of it now, and he confronts his former friend who's basically gone mad with power and is controlling the assassins, and the guy's like taunting him that he's like, you'll never be able to reach me, I have too many guards, and then you just get the prompt, fire the hidden gun. I saw that, I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun.
I sat there and I was like, what? Okay, let's see what happens. And it's exactly like, and mind you, Altair at this point is an old man.
He's like in his 70s.
He's supposed to be like their master from the first game. He's about that character's age.
Yeah.
And after you kill him, the guy who took over, Altair takes over, and he assumes that position. But
it's more like Altair took back control, because he had been the mentor, and then this guy basically staged a coup and forced him out
and killed one of Altair's sons.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to see like an animation that shows how he got the design for the gun, because technically guns didn't really exist. And the first person that we technically saw use the hidden gun was Ezio. But
it was based off of blueprints that Altair had made. How the hell did he learn how to make a gun?
Exactly. So
it's like, did he look at a cannon and go, I want that, but I want to be able to mount it on my wrist? Did he talk to some early day engineer who was like, I can do that for you?
Didn't he say something about the Apple of Eden showing him something from the future too?
There was a lot of that. He spent a lot of time studying the Apple, I think, in his downtime, or the time between all that stuff. So it could be something that was just lodged in his head, and he finally just managed to sketch it out and then worked on making it.
So, he was technically buried with it in that the library that he was in
that city, whose name I can't remember.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I do remember the name of his mentor, the one who, from Assassin's Creed 1, Al-Mualim,
which I think translates to the old man on the mountain,
something like that.
Because I remember one of the other mentors from like one of the later games, I want to say it was Ezio, when he basically when he started getting older, because he had his own section of the Brotherhood, he got a nickname that was something that was similar to that, like a title, but I don't fully remember what it was.
Al-Mualim was actually his title, which translates as the mentor.
Oh no! He was known as the old man on the mountain.
That was his. That was a nickname because he was
the old man on the mountain.
The old man on the mountain. But yeah, Al-Mualim was his title. I looked it up here on the Assassin's Creed wiki. It does give his actual name, which was Rashid ad-Din Sinan or Sinan. I don't know how it would specifically be pronounced in Arabic. I don't remember if that was something that was revealed in like the Animus database in the games, or if somebody picked it up from somewhere else. But Mualim was literally the mentor.
Anyway. But yeah, like I said, I want to see the Assassin's Creed animation to fill in those gaps.
Fill in those gaps for Altair, and maybe do some for Ezio as well, because there were still gaps there in
like where
Ezio's
they did
stuff.
The time lapse stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the stuff that happened between Brotherhood and Revelation.
Yep, there's a big gap there because Ezio was much older by the time he made it to Constantinople.
But he was still,
he was still capable of fighting, but he was not as spry as he used to be. It's one reason the hook blade was so helpful for him.
Yeah, I remember in that game when you had a parachute down, he legit says this used to be so much easier to do.
What else? But and fill in. Another season could focus on Kenway.
Yeah, because
on on Edward Kenway specifically, because while we saw all of what he got up to in his earlier days when he was a pirate, eventually he sort of went respectable.
Well, we gotta get Matt Ryan back to voice him.
Yeah, and sort of show what happened between the end of Black Flag and the time of his death, because by that point he had finally become a full-fledged assassin. Most of the time in Black Flag, he's not an assassin.
No,
he's just a pirate who has an assassin's weapon.
Yeah, well, I mean, he took the assassin that he kills in the game was actually going to go and meet the Templars.
Was going to defect, yeah.
But Kenway kind of, threw, he was the monkey in the wrench, or in the gears, and he just messed everything up, and then he had to act like he was this guy.
Even though I think all the Templars saw through it. They were just sort of like, yeah, this isn't the guy. But he managed to kill the guy, so maybe we should have this guy instead.
But plus, it doesn't help the fact that Kenway was also drunk most of the damn time, especially that one part where he got really depressed because everybody knew.
I don't know that I would say that he was drunk all the time. He hit rock bottom in that one sequence.
Oh God!
Where he started hallucinating and all that shit.
He started hallucinating.
Spoilers, by the way.
He started seeing everybody that
the people that had died, and it's like, because I think by that point a lot of the pirates that he was friends with had also been captured or killed. I did find out that the part with Blackbeard, when Blackbeard dies, that was historically accurate. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't know how Blackbeard actually died, so I had to look it up, and it turns out that's actually how he died in the game. And then there was the I can't remember who it was the female pirate that was acting like a boy. Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. I forget also.
In all honesty, she's the one that I felt sorry for the most because I feel
you
like
sympathized with her very heavily. They wanted you to clearly. They made you sympathize with most of the decent pirates. Calico Jack, I think, was the one pirate you looked at. It was just sort of like, this guy's a bit screwy. I'm not going to be sorry if he dies.
Yeah.
Was it Calico Jack? Calico something or other, I think. The one that was very clearly the one that served as the inspiration for Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, that's him. I can't.
You just looked at him and you were like, are they deliberately making him seem like Jack Sparrow? And then I thought, I was like, no, wait. They're probably basing this guy off actual reports about him, so this guy served as the inspiration for Jack Sparrow. It just comes back full circle, kind of thing.
I think one of the cool things that I did like about that game was the upgrade system that they introduced.
Oh yeah,
I know the upgrade system was introduced in Assassin's Creed 3, but I think it was better in 4.
Yeah. Well, that's always been the case with the Assassin's Creed games. They've tried to make improvements to everything. With each game.
Unfortunately, I will.
It's not always successful, but they try to.
Yeah, I granted with Origin, the way that they completely revamped the gameplay, I like that.
I did. I liked it too. It took a little getting used to, but because I wasn't bothering to try to parry a whole lot of the time, or it's like I kept missing my timing, and eventually I figured it out. I was like, oh, okay, now you guys are gonna die. Yeah. Now I figured out the trick.
But I like how the one thing I liked in that game was when you first use the hidden blade after you got it.
Oh yeah, and he accidentally cuts his finger off.
He has no other choice. Bayek has no other choice. He's got to kill this guy, And where the blade is, it's like right against the guy's throat, but it's not activated yet. Unfortunately, the way it's also positioned is his ring finger is in the way.
I think it might have been because of his grip, like he was gripping the guy by the throat and then stabbed through, and it cut his finger off.
It cut his finger off, yeah. And then
and afterwards he's staring at his hand like, oh shit.
Then he gets his wife to fix it up for him.
Or she wraps a bandage around it, and
then they have fun after that. And I remember
there were so many little things in those games.
What about at the end when he takes the little
bird skull,
little bird skull, drops it in the sand, and then when
it fell or whatever, and then he picks it up.
I think his wife dropped hers because she was just like
it's like we have avenged him. We need to move on past this.
Yeah. And they both had started their own
they still love each other, but they are moving in different directions.
Yeah, where she
parallel but separate.
I think she formed her own version of the creed also, and he started.
It's like they were both doing the creed, but they very clearly had spent too much time apart to stay together.
So he goes and picks the bird skull up.
And it left a little imprint in the sand.
Yeah, the little mark, the little imprint that it leaves on the sand is the assassin's logo. It's the A. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay.
I see how they got the symbol now.
I see.
That's kind of contrived, but I like how you did that.
There's one part where I don't remember where in the game, but if you listen to these two people's conversation, what they're clearly discussing is the Templars. Like the Templars, like what the Templars wanted, and then there was also because I know the Assassins have their own creed, have the creed which is we work in the darkness to serve the light.
Yeah.
The Templars have their own one, and at one point,
may the Father of Understanding guide you.
Yes, where you hear somebody
make some comment about the Father of Understanding.
Yes, and I was just like, okay, I like this.
Well, it's because the Order of the Ancients. And that before them, the Cult of Cosmos, which predated the Order of the Ancients. Well, technically, I think they were completely separate, because the Cult of Cosmos was one thing, and then you had the Order of the Ancients, which was essentially the Persians that came looking for Darius.
There's a letter that you find where the Cult of Cosmos and the other cult,
the Order of the Ancients,
they're basically one wants to try to work with the other.
Yeah.
And because Cassandra makes a comment to if these two start working together, we're going to be in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Well, and actually, there was a whole point of that. There was a conversation that you could have with cultists. It's like end game stuff, after you've completed the main story of Origins, you could come to this one marketplace in one of the cities, and you would have this conversation with just people walking around and basically trying to tell Bayek that your brotherhood or whatever, your people aren't going to succeed. We don't need a creed to rally around, kind of thing, because that's just how the Templars function.
Which Assassin's game was this?
This was in Origins.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
I didn't do that part.
It's not like a story mission or anything.
It takes place after you beat the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forget where it is, but you could basically have interact with this crowd, and people in the crowd that are just milling around, walking around Bayek would basically be taunting him, just sort of we need no creed. The order is eternal, as it was put in the. Did you play the Hidden Ones DLC?
I don't remember if I did or not.
Because it was the DLC that didn't deal with the dead with the zombie, the mummified pharaohs. It's not the Curse of the Pharaohs.
I didn't do that one yet.
The Hidden Ones. You go to a different map area, and it's dealing some more with some of the Romans that are occupying Egypt, and the conversations you have with them after you've killed them, stuff, all basically creepy as hell, but they all basically say the same thing as they stare down Bayek. They're just like, the order is eternal. Implying it's like, you may have killed all of us, but we're still out there, and we're always going to be out there.
Well, it's kind of like in the Assassin's... Well, it's called I think it's called the Colonial Americas trilogy, which consists of Black Flag, Liberation, and 3. Liberation does count.
Okay.
I
would basically, I keep forgetting about Liberation. If I was going to call like the Colonial Americas trilogy, I would go with Black Flag, Rogue, and 3.
I guess you could throw Rogue in there, but if we're just talking about like where you just play as an assassin, not an assassin term.
Fair enough.
No. Rogue is actually the final chapter in the Kenway trilogy.
Okay, that's fair.
Because where Rogue ends, Unity begins,
mm-hmm. and it moves into that segment.
Yes. So,
I was waiting for there to be a third game with Unity and Syndicate. And after Unity and Syndicate, so you'd have that trilogy before they moved on to the
past,
before they went back in time again, because they steadily sort of moving forward. Yeah, they backstepped a bit with Black Flag, but if you're going to tell a story about pirates, I'm 100% fine with that. But at any rate,
but anyways, that section of like. The assassins is called like the colonial assassins. Same thing goes with the Templars. So
Colonial Brotherhood, I think, is what they call it. And the colonial chapter of the order.
So depending entirely on where they're located is what they're called. So yeah, each area that they're in. The
Italian Brotherhood.
There's the Italian Brotherhood. Yeah, there's the would it be the British Brotherhood from Syndicate? Is that
probably?
Because I know that at that point in time, the Brotherhood was pretty much broken.
Well, they gotten their asses kicked during the 7 Years' War / French and Indian War for us colonials, because Shay Cormac and the Templars hunted down all the notable assassins, and Connor built them back up, but
Oh yeah, that's another thing that I want to see from this series.
Connor? What happens to Connor? Yeah, because he just sort of went away, and we never really. I don't know that we ever really got any closure.
The only other game that he was in was Liberation.
Yeah. What other adventures did he get up to after the American Revolution? Did he try to go find his people and protect them, or did he travel across America trying to protect other tribes from the expansion of the American territories? Because Lord knows we Americans were not very kind to the natives.
We weren't.
Trail of Tears, anyone?
I mean, I can't really say anything because I looked at my family history. We were not in this country at that time.
Yeah. I can't speak for I can't speak for my dad's side of the family. They might have been. I'd have to look it up, but I know on my mom's side they weren't yet. They were still one half was still in Austria, the other half was still in Sweden.
For me, it was more like my great granddad was still in Germany, and
in my case, it was my great grandparents were my mom's side Austria and Sweden. I don't remember from my dad's side. I know that they were of English descent. And at least on his mom's side, were descended from the Kimballs. But the Kimballs bred like frickin' rabbits.
Catholic?
I don't know about that, but just about anybody whose name is Kimball, regardless of how it's spelt, can probably trace their ancestry back to this one family. Anyway.
But yeah, like I said,
show us what happened with Connor, or come up with other assassins that are maybe not necessarily involved in huge big conflicts, but there's so much history out there. We don't need to just traipse on all the same time periods and the same characters.
Well, like I said, you don't really need to fully concentrate on these characters. Like what I said, one season is
Altair. One season is Ezio. One season is Connor.
Another season is Edward. Another season is Jacob and Evie after the Jack the Ripper moment. Because if you remember...
Yeah.
Because the DLC for Syndicate was you had to hunt Jack the Ripper.
I was 100% down for that DLC. As soon as I heard there was a Jack the Ripper DLC, I was like, you have my attention.
Same here.
It was great.
Same here, because if you look at when Jack was doing his thing, he never got caught. Mm-hmm. He just disappeared.
And and without spoilers, the Jack the Ripper DLC does give an explanation for who Jack was. No, it's not who you expect, and why he was quote unquote never caught, and why his identity has never been revealed. You know, because there's reasons that make sense in story for it all, but we're not going to spoil it. Yeah. You know, go play Assassin's Creed Syndicate. It's a good game.
It's a really good game, especially since you get to switch back and forth between twins,
Jacob and Evie, and I like that Jacob is just sort of like, that guy's a Templar. I'm going to go kill him. Doesn't give a shit what the consequences are, and Evie finds out what he's done and finds out what the consequences were, and she's like, motherfucker, and has to go and basically then has to go clean up his mess. Every single chapter opens with her having to go back to some place that he infiltrated and killed somebody and put things right so that like the economy doesn't collapse or something.
I did like how much like with a lot of the games you did work with historical figures. Like I think
Alexander Graham Bell
I think one of them was one of them Charles Darwin?
I think they mentioned him, but no, the one that you work with the most is Alexander Graham Bell. He's the one who basically fixed the little grappling hook thing that the twins use.
He's your Q.
He takes the place of Leonardo da Vinci. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so in our game we need to have a Q.
Yeah, I mean you're dealing with spy stuff. Have somebody from Q Branch or whatever the equivalent in MI6 is.
Maybe what it could be is like a former member of MI6 is there. He was like a weapons specialist and
weapons / equipment quartermaster kind of thing.
And he secretly worked alongside the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
But he left MI6 because he honestly couldn't stand by and watch what was happening in Germany.
Yeah.
So he has like a different agenda than hunt down the.
Or maybe it was more like he wanted to stay, but because he was still employed by them, they reassigned him, and he had no choice, kind of thing. Because if he was with MI6, they're like, we are reassigning you back to London or whatever.
But have it to where he still communicates with your character.
He passes intelligence along and whatever.
Hidden messages and stuff.
Well, or it's just like after the war, he wanted to stay and help, but got called back, and now it's like maybe he's moved into retirement or something, and he's come back to try to help.
But he helps make stuff for the Creed, the assassins that are.
Maybe he even has some tie to he's trying to help track down the Sage for reasons of his own.
But have him very Q-like. You know, like I'm talking about the original one.
Yeah, not like nerdy specky no mates from Daniel Craig's Bond.
That guy works though. That's
he does work, but not like him. Not quite like John Cleese. John Cleese was good.
Desmond Llewellyn.
Desmond Llewellyn, yes. Absolutely. Please pay attention, Bond.
Oh yeah.
Do try to return it all in one piece.
Yes. That has to be a line every single time you get something new. And you're just like, okay, this is cool. And then,
maybe he accidentally blows something up. It's like, do try to return the equipment all in one piece.
And then, like, he comes back and it's just, like, damaged but not completely broken.
And have him just sort of make some comment, just sort of like, Schmidt, or whatever our German assassin's name is. When I tell you not to damage the equipment, does any part of your brain actually fire at that time? Typical dry British, I'm going to snark like hell because I'm British.
Exactly. The typical snarky British talk.
And, just have our assassin fire back. I am half British. Yes, but only half. Now, do shut up.
Yes, and I'm sorry about your other half.
Yes, and your other half is the side that happened to lose the war. Or something. You gotta have them snarking back and forth at one another. It's like they work well together, but it's just like the British side of our assassin comes out every time he meets with this guy.
It's kind of like how the what was it, that scene in Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, where you have Captain Boomerang and Constantine meet, and all they're doing is
it's like British versus Australia snarking at one another.
It's like Brit, Aussie, wanker,
and they both just go wanker at the same time. We've been going for almost an hour and a half at this point. We should probably wrap this up.
Part 2.
We could talk about this for longer, but we would need to have more to talk about besides just our ideas for like Cold War Assassin's Creed.
Next time it can be like our likes and dislikes of the franchise.
Or we'll probably bring it up a little bit when we do another Ramblecast that we're going to do on like shared universe stuff, because I've talked about how Ubisoft's games all tend to have ties to one another. They had Assassin's Creed pop up in Watch Dogs. They had an Abstergo logo in one of the Far Cry games. In Far Cry New Dawn, you can find a crashed airplane that belonged to Fifth Echelon from Splinter Cell.
Really?
And you can find stuff that mentions The Division, and in Ghost Recon Wildlands, not the newer one that flubbed, that failed, but the one that was set in Bolivia or wherever. There's DLC where you meet some of the siege operators, like the Rainbow Six Siege characters.
Okay.
So it's like they've put in all these ties with their games together. It's mostly just sort of like, hey, we own these properties, we're gonna throw it in there. But it's cool to sort of imagine that they all sort of had ties to one another.
I mean, it's like in Last of Us. If you look close enough in the game, you can find references to Uncharted.
Mm-hmm. But sometimes that's just, it's we're the makers of these games. They're just throwing these things in. Except the Assassin's Creed reference in Watch Dogs.
You have to kill a character from Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, you're killing him. You're killing the head of Abstergo Entertainment.
From
Black Flag.
From Black Flag,
because there's a point in Black Flag in the modern day section. You meet this character. You've interacted with him a few times in the modern day sections. He's like your overall boss, and then he makes some mention that he has a business trip. He has to go to Chicago, and then he just
disappears.
He just disappears and never shows up again.
Like even the Abstergo people are like, we don't know what happened to him. He just went missing. In Watch Dogs,
and Watch Dogs, you kill him. It's granted this is like a side mission thing. It's not 100% required for you to complete the story, but it's much less of a DLC tie-in thing like the Siege character showing up in Wildlands, or just sort of like a throwaway reference like in the Far Cry games. You go into a bunker in Far Cry 3 and there's an Abstergo logo on the wall kind of thing. And that's all cool stuff. It's not necessarily all tied in except for the Watch Dogs thing. That one's 100%, yes, that's there 100%. But at any rate, we're still rambling on. We need to wrap this up. Stay tuned for that Ramblecast when we talk shared universe ideas, with Ubisoft, MCU, DC, Arrowverse, a whole bunch of any other stuff. Stuff we want to throw in there.
I would keep Arrowverse strictly with the DC part.
Yeah, but some people would consider it its own thing. Yes, I know it's tied into the DC stuff because of Crisis, but anyway, that's a future podcast.
And we might eventually come back to Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, because as you can tell, he and I get talking about this stuff, and we just will keep going forever. But again, this has been an hour and a half of us rambling, so I think that's a good cutoff point. So, unless you have any final thoughts to throw in there,
I can't wait for Ragnarok to come out.
Valhalla. It's called Valhalla. Yes,
Sorry.
we all thought it was going to be called Ragnarok, but
No,
Valhalla.
that was the name that they were originally going for before they went for Valhalla.
And I like Valhalla instead because Ragnarok has other connotations to it that. At any rate, yeah, definitely looking forward to Valhalla this year because Vikings are awesome, and I'm really hoping that they do a DLC stuff where we meet the Norse gods, and maybe go fight some Jotuns.
No, wait, what was the thing that you said you were hoping for? Like a little certain crossover?
Oh, God of War, duh. They need to have some reference to God of War, like he just finds some berserker somewhere who maybe originally comes from Greece or something. Some Greek guy living in the woods with his son.
But yeah, I can't wait for that. Do you remember in the trailer for it during like the big battle?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember seeing the two
crows? The ravens.
Those were Odin's.
Yeah, and well, not just them. You saw like a hooded figure that they were standing on a tree near, and that's what led the protagonist to go, "Odin is with us!" and rallied the troops again.
Yeah, but I think we all know it's an assassin.
Probably, but regardless, that about wraps it up. If you have any comments, if you have anything you'd like to see in an Assassin's Creed game or in the animated series, go ahead and leave a comment. But until our next ramble, until our next binge, I'm Jay, and for Chris, we'll see you next time. 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 See you next time.